everybody, and welcome to the Open Mic, Writers in Their Own Words, the show where every episode I talk to writers, editors, agents, sometimes others from the publishing game to learn a little bit about them and the work that they do. I am, of course, your host, Rich Eisen, and the show is available on YouTube and via all of the major podcast platforms. You can subscribe to either or to both, so you never miss a thing. That is, of course, my preference. I would also ask if you like what you hear today, please tell a friend. That's a great way for others to learn about the show, especially if you think you know somebody who might be interested in the writing game. It is a challenging, thrilling, exciting, sometimes collegial, sometimes not, game for people to get involved in. And you know what? You'll never learn more about it than from the people who do it on the regular, which is why I do this show. That said, if you don't like this show, then just keep it to yourself and don't tell anybody. No point sharing bad news, right? Um, yes, my guest today, she's making her second visit to the show, which is great because this is one of my favorite people here in this crazy business. Her work is well known and respected across many genres, from screenplays and game designs to novels and poetry. And of course, she does have numerous novels, and she's also a great short story writer. She is a multi-time Bram Stoker Award winner, and an all-around awesome person. She has a new book out as well. It is called Brimstone and Blades. It came out in June, so we're very, very new. And she's here today to talk about that release and some other writing stuff in general. We're going to get to it. If you're on YouTube right now, you can see her. She just held up the book, but you can go on Amazon or your local indie bookseller wherever, and you can find it. I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet, but I know it's going to be a great read because Maria is a great writer. So, Maria Alexander, welcome back to the open mic. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you, Rich?
I'm doing really well, doing well. Well, as I've been talking about the book, why don't we start there? Brimstone and Blades, like I said, came out in early June. Why
Mhm.
don't you tell the folks out there a little bit about the book?
Well, the book is about a young teen named Julie La Maupin, and she's based on a real historical character named Daubigny, also known as La Maupin. And but I start the story with her when she's 16, on the verge of discovering she's both badass and bisexual. And it's her turn in life to um, oh my God, I can't believe I'm stumbling on this. It's her turn to take on the foes of King Louis XIV, Louis the 14th. And these include necromancers and with powerful connections in the uppermost reaches of the Regency. So and they have one thing in mind. They want to destroy France as it is.
Oh, so they're
So
like Republicans.
yeah, basically.
Look, I'm going to say something right now, folks. Okay, if you've been watching or listening to my show long enough, and what I just said bothers you, haven't been listening to my show long enough. I'm so sorry. Um, we're going to get into some conversations here. So
I'm sure.
if
Oh yeah,
that
good.
one
Let's go. Let's go.
if that one made you pucker up, go ahead and skip this one. Okay, I'm just sorry. You can deal with it. Anyway,
Anyway.
now for those of us who don't know, because now again, a lot of people know this show for crime fiction, noir, thrillers, and and we're going to talk a little bit more about dark fantasy and YA stuff. But for those like me who are not really terribly familiar with the genre, make sure we know what a necromancer is.
Oh, it's someone who uses magic with to raise the dead.
Oh,
It's death magic. Um, and really this book, I think it's kind of genre defying in a way. When Book Life, which is part of the Publishers Weekly, when they reviewed it, they kept using all kinds of genre words to describe it. At one point they described it as a horror mystery, and another part they described it as a historical fantasy, and then they called it YA. And I was like, well, it really is all those things. Did it have to be just one? And I'm really pleased with how it turned out, because these are all things that I love. Um, I really do think the horror mystery part of it is pretty strong because Julie gets pulled into all of this because she's discovering that there are all these children that are being killed in a ritualistic manner out in the countryside of France, in northern France. And that's when she sort of gets sucked into this and she discovers something at one of the death sites that links her to that scene, and she winds up becoming very much possibly accused of committing some of these crimes. And when you think about it, people, especially then LGBTQIA plus folk, they were always considered suspect. Of anything, if you were LGBTQIA plus, if you were, any shade other than lily white, like, or if you didn't speak French in that case, like you would just anybody would be suspect. And especially also if you were poorer, because they had this concept that nobles did not commit crimes,
Hmm.
that the nobles were noble, that they were not, they were somehow morally uplifted, and that they were not capable of those things. When we all, of course, know that rich people are exceedingly capable of, or people born into wealth, exceedingly capable of doing terrible things. So,
Sadly,
yeah,
we're
so
all very intimately familiar with that right now.
yes, very much so. So it always kind of I don't know if cracked me up was quite the expression, but when I was researching for this book and I kept coming across that in French history, it just was like, oh my God. And one of her nemesis, this guy, the Comte d'Armagnac, who was a real person, he was her rapist in real life. And nobody held him to any standard. They thought he was fine, but you could rape a 13-year-old girl, it's fine. He had a right. He had oh, she chose it. She was his mistress. No, she was 13 years old, and her father worked for him, the Comte. So it's there are all these. It's like it's this really weird idea that just because you were born into money and status that you can't commit a crime. Like, what is that? So strange.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's definitely some connections to our modern world there.
Hmm.
Well, so you mentioned the genre thing, and I was going to ask if how you saw this. You've answered it maybe a little bit to some extent here, because I know a lot of your work has been in the YA category. And of course, when you have a protagonist who's young, a lot of publishers automatically or booksellers will automatically tag it as YA, even though it might have some very adult themes and some very uh, themes that are very much in another genre like horror, as you noted. So,
Hmm.
how do you see it though, mostly here, and and then of course in this day and age, we all have to do so much of our own marketing.
Hmm.
How is it when you are giving these kinds of descriptions or when you're going out to do your own presentations? How do you normally present it?
I usually talk about it as a dark historical fantasy with a queer teen protagonist. And the in a lot of YA, why I think that is still a good category for it, because it is told basically from her point of view, and it doesn't move from that. It stays with her point of view for the most part, except for the prologue. The rest of it is all her point of view and from her sensibility and from her, we're not going from her to the point of view of an adult to another adult and then back to her. It's all from her point of view. And I think that that's really important in YA that we see that it's because YA is a story of something happening to a teen as they're telling it to another teen.
Hmm.
So it's going to be from her point of view. She's going to do dumb things, like dumb teen things. And but it still appeals. A lot of times these things appeal to adults. And I don't really understand it because I mean there is a lot of YA out there where the kids are not doing teen things. They're basically adults and but they're given these younger ages. And so like when Snowed came out and people were saying, well, I thought this character, Charity Jones, is, oh, I thought she was supposed to be so smart. I'm like, she's 16, she's dumb. she's
Right.
gonna, she's a child. What are you thinking? And then I realized that a lot of the genre is just adults who are given an age of 16 or 15. And then that really kind of annoyed me. So I said, screw it. I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it. I'm going to be real. I'm going to make it
Right.
real. And I
Right.
mean, like, this is how it is. And so that maybe kids can relate to it, as opposed
Well,
to just adults wanting.
you know, and I know I'm going to massacre the pronunciation. It's Julie La Maupin.
You can call her La Maupin.
Okay.
You can call her Julie. You can
Okay.
call,
I'll
you
just
can
say
call her La
Julie. That I
Maupin.
can say.
Julie. Yeah, exactly. That's her name.
For
That's her name.
somebody who's basically half French, I speak no French at all. Uh,
Oh, great.
she and I want to read these descriptions for folks because I think this is really interesting. She's described as, quote, fearlessly modern and often plain fearless, bisexual and androgynous, unquote, and then
Mhm.
also as, quote, an iconic queer figure, mining her well-documented gifts, courage, and tempestuousness to power and arresting horror mystery, unquote. And I wanted to zero in on that a little bit because we are in a time where it feels like the LGBTQ plus community is so under attack, both literally in some ways and more symbolically in others. Peeling the name off of battleships and that kind of stupid stuff.
Oh,
Um,
and removing rainbows from
yeah,
crosswalks. Like,
absolutely.
it's freaking ridiculous. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you created Julie, how you developed her story, and maybe the intentionality behind creating this kind of a character in a time like this, and maybe what she represents to you. Now, again, I'm very aware a lot of times stories start long from the time you think of it to the time it gets to a reader
Yeah.
can be years in some cases. But
True.
maybe just give me a thought now how you see Julie, and again what how you developed her, and maybe how what you hope she represents to the people that are reading this story.
First of all, I didn't have to do much to her character. I took her pretty much from history, just everything that we knew, even some apocryphal things, and I just lifted her. Now, in terms of finding her voice, like that literary voice for her, that took a little time. I had to really think about, like, how does now Julie, she's not religious. So how when she is, but she's in this intensely religious culture. So what are some of the things that she says that, and how does she think and how does she talk to herself? And if nothing, even when she's not thinking out, when she's not talking out loud, and I realized that, her saints are all the great sword masters. So whenever she has an exclamation, it's, she calls on the name of some sword master, one of the great sword masters. And just little things like that to kind of give her more interiority and to develop her character in that way and to and so my feeling when I first started was I just loved her. I just thought she was an incredible character because I discovered her 20 years ago when I was living in France. And I related to her so in so many ways. Like at the time, I had already been studying European smallsword. I was already, like I was a singer. I mean, like I just and also I wasn't quite aware of it yet, but I was, pansexual. And so I was like really like figuring out there's a lot of stuff I was learning. And actually in France is when I really started to realize a lot of these things about myself. And when that's when I first fell in love with her, but there were all these other stories I wanted to tell first. I felt like this was really hard story to tell, and I wasn't sure how to tell it. And then for a while, I was represented by Trident Media Group, and my agent there told me, "Well, I can't sell a book like this unless it has magic in it." to teens. And I was like, oh, 'cause I really didn't want to write a book about, I didn't want to write magic. I wanted it to be sort of a historical thriller. This is kind of what I wanted. And he said, no, it's got to be, you got to have magic. And I said, okay, fine. So during that period of those few years when I was repped by Trident, when I was working on the book, it had, I mean, everything, there's magic. I incorporated magic into it. And I mean, it's easy for me to incorporate the supernatural, but to create a magic system and to weave it into the culture and all that, that's the work of fantasy writers. Fantasy writers are the people who really they have such an incredible grasp of world building that they can weave all these things together so expertly. And so for me, it was my first time trying to do something like that. And it was hard. And and the book is still, I mean, I realized I had to make it longer. I had to make all these adjustments to accommodate all these elements in the story. Now, today, have taken this way beyond like, what does she mean to me? Because obviously she means a lot to me. But to me, she is the epitome of the resistance. She's out there, she's doing her thing, she's living the way she wants to live. And she does not give a fuck what anybody thinks about her life, about who she loves, who she kisses. There are wonderful scenes from her life that I've incorporated in this book that where, kissing girls, that's her thing. She kisses boys, she kisses girls. I mean, who knows what Julie's I mean, she was definitely bisexual. She might have been a lot more if she lived today, where she could actually question her gender outright. So I feel like she is a powerful example, especially for teens, of someone who lived hundreds of years ago, who took on the establishment and lived as she lived openly bisexual her whole life.
Hmm. Yeah.
And, I feel like, the English, they got the Victorian era, right? They got Queen Victoria, and that really fucked them up.
Yeah.
And the French never got that. They never had a Queen Victoria. They
Right.
had libertines. So they've been able, despite their intensely Catholic culture, they've been able to give people a certain amount of freedom that,
I read Mad Magazine a lot as a kid.
Mhm.
I remember, because they did the great parodies of movies and TV shows, and one of them was one of the James Bond movies, and they referred to James Bond as only Mad Magazine could, as having a license to kill, which of course is the James Bond thing, but because he's English, only a learner's permit to make out. And I was just old enough at the time to understand, of course, what all that meant, and I found that hilarious, right? And I still find it hilarious all these many years later, right? And the more you get to know anything about, English culture, at least then, certainly the Victorian era and everything, you realize how spot on that was, right?
Yes,
I love that. I think that's hilarious.
it's perfect. Yeah.
Well, just following up on that, I mean, right now, in this day and age, we're seeing literal book bannings, not quite book burnings, but we're certainly seeing lots of books being banned. And of course, the vast majority of those are books that deal with an LGBTQ theme of any kind. A lot of them are meant to help educate young people, but even anything that might have anything remotely related to, the same-sex anything, we're seeing that real intense, not just I'm not going to buy it, but you shouldn't be allowed to buy it either kind of mentality.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen any of that in relation to your book, any of that kind of pushback? And
Not yet. Not
any,
yet.
well, which is good. That is great. Did you get any of it from the industry or other than someone telling you, hey, you need to have hocus pocus in this book or we can't do it? But I mean, what, I guess, what has been any kind of reaction to all of this for you?
Well, when I do readings, if I read from especially like it depends on which part I read, right? Um, I tend to read the really exciting parts, and the action parts for when I'm reading, or like when she's discovering dead bodies. But but even when I do that, like the mostly it's people from the community who say, I wish I had this book when I was a teen. That's really what I get. And I had a lot of trouble with the book in the industry, not because of the subject matter. I think it was just my writing. It was such a struggle to do it right that I got it out too early before it was ready. And so there wasn't a lot of excitement about it because people would read it and go, that's not, it's not, what are you doing? So it needed so much love and so much time and everything that I think now when people read it, they're very open and they're very excited. But I think it's just right out there, in the book description because it's so obvious in the book description. Um, I think a lot of the people who just don't like it are just avoiding it, you
Well,
know.
and that my thought has always been, if you don't like it, don't
Don't do
do it,
it. Don't read it.
Read
Yeah,
it. There's so many books to read. Go read something else. I've never understood the whole, well, and don't bring the kids stuff in it with me. That's just horse shit. Anyway,
it's
I,
total horseshit.
I'm
If
hopping off
if
my high horse here.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that, like, if this book had been put out by a big publisher, I think it might be different because it would be a lot higher profile. And so then it would be getting it might be getting more pushback. But right now it's kind of, flying along under the radar and people like I sell tons of copies, like, especially when I'm at events, like I just show people this cover and they're like, I want that.
That's a great point.
It's it's like it's not hard to sell. And then I was just at Midsummer Scream, and it was the first book to sell out on my table. So I felt like, and it was always like to people. I mean, but like I could pick out the person who, I'm like, okay, here's somebody who's non-binary. Here's a person. There was a girl. She had a shirt that said leftist, pansexual, uh, feminist, or something like that. And then and then I was like waving my hands at her, and then I said, pen, 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 pen. And then and her name was Maria. That was
Oh,
an easy sell.
that's an easy one. Easy one.
But people are hungry for this. I mean, they're hungry for these stories, and especially like I mean, but when you got like Gentleman Jack, which was such an amazing TV show, and Ann Lister is such an amazing historical character, but it got canceled.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah, it does seem like such a weird time. And, you know, I'm circle back before I forget it though, too, because we mentioned agents a couple of times. I know the last time we talked, which is about a year and a half ago, I think, when you came on the show the last time, maybe not quite that long, but about a year ago, you were searching for a new agent. And God, I know how difficult that process is. I'm very grateful that I have a good agent now, and she's been around for a while. We're working
mhm.
hand in hand on this manuscript that I've been trying to sell since Dirt was new. But how is the search going for you? How has that process been for you? Not good.
Well, here's the thing. So I decided to shift my focus, and the next agent search is going to be with the new book that I'm writing called The Ascension. And The Ascension is a supernatural thriller, a supernatural YA thriller. And so the reason I went to StokerCon was to make those agent contacts so that I could, like meet people and really get, and editors and really kind of make those connections so that when that book is ready, and I was open to all of them. I said, look, it's not ready, but I want to gauge your interest in this sort of thing, and also just, introduce myself so I'm not a stranger. And they were all, I mean, I made a few really great connections there. And I'm, yeah, so we'll see what happens. I think, but the Ascension again, like here's another book that's just throwing, 50,000 fists at religion, especially established Christianity. And I don't know how to do it any other way. I just don't know what. Julie punches priests in this book. I mean, they're possessed, but she.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what gets the attention of an agent other than something that they can sell in the flyover states.
Right. Right.
That's all I know. I just
It seems
so
to
I
be the
don't know
only thing
what's
they
going to
care about
happen.
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, and I think that the ascension is like I don't know. I think it's pretty phenomenal for me in the writing and the characterization and the whole concept.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's definitely never been done before. Never. And then I wonder, I'm like, oh great. Now I did another thing too, where it's never been done before. Now nobody wants it because they don't want to take a chance. So
Well, that's the thing. Agents and publishers always say the same thing. Oh, we want that fresh new voice, that thing we haven't seen before, and all the other stuff. And then know what they really want is something that is like, Gone Girl meets, whatever the hottest thing is of the moment, right? And so they
right.
just tell us all kinds of bullshit. And I think they mean it when they say, I'd love to find something fresh and new and exciting. But at the end of the day, when they have to take it to the committee, they want
Yeah.
something that says it's just like these other five things that have sold because they want to make money. And
Yeah, that's the bottom line. And that's really the big conversation I've been having lately with a lot of writers is the idea of writing as art and writing as commerce. And do we push for the commerce part or do we just do the art and see what happens?
yeah,
I feel like that's where I am at now. I feel like in my life, I'm sort of in my third act of my life, and I don't have I've seen enough and I've done enough where I know I don't really want to chase things. I admire writers who can, who can say, "Oh, okay, I see what they're doing there. I'm going to tweak what I do to make it more like that, and then it'll go." And there are people who do that. I met them at StokerCon. They're very, very successful, um, and I admire it. But I can't do it. I was a copywriter for Disney for like 7 years, and so I was able to do it like in my day job, but as an artist, I can't do it.
yeah, I've often thought if I could just get over that horrible addiction to food and shelter, what could I do with my keyboard? Ah,
Right.
it's such a Hobson's choice sometimes.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm going to circle back to the copywriting in a second, but I don't want to leave this quite yet because this time that we're in feels like a perfect time for dark fantasy because I feel like we're living in a very Game of Thrones kind of world where we're trying to, we're struggling and trying to save something, of our world from some truly evil, evil people.
Hmm.
And I've always believed, as a lot of us do, that, artists, creatives, storytellers have a really strong and powerful role to play in times like these. How do you see the role of storytellers in these times?
I feel, for one, we need to provide a way to feed people spiritually and emotionally. Um, People are burning the candle at both ends, in terms of they're on social media, they're doom scrolling, they're reading Heather Cox Richardson every day, they're doing all of this stuff that's just filling them with so much rage, and it's exhausting. And I feel like what reading does, what stories do, is they give us they feed us spiritually. They give us an escape, but also they give us that hope and that nourishment, that feeling that somebody understands me. Somebody knows that what I need and knows my feelings and knows, so it kind of gives them that ability to go in and have that compassionate exchange with the art itself. And I I don't think art is there necessarily to change people's minds. It could. It could if it's true to itself. And I mean, if somebody reads it and they're not thinking, oh, this is a liberal book or oh, this is a conservative book, and it shows a different way of life, like if it's a window book, it can help someone change their mind, but I don't think it's about winning minds as much as feeding souls
Right.
at this time.
And the thing that is disturbing to me, and look, I'm a cis white, well, I'm not white really. I'm a cis male, right?
Mhm.
But I've never been threatened, I guess, by anyone that isn't like me. I'm not threatened by other cultures and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And I really credit a lot of that. A couple things, I did not grow up in a household where that was a part of the world, like where racism or sex and all those things. Well, we had lots of other problems, but that was not one of them.
Right.
And uh, I credit a lot of the rest of it to books and to
Hmm.
to reading and to expanding my world, even if it wasn't an LGBTQ theme or anything like that, or you know any other kind of a theme. Just the idea of reading other perspectives, people's stories, whether they were fictional or I read a lot of nonfiction. I mean, I'm such a voracious reader, and I think that is one of the things that we really have lost. I still know, and I'm sure, lots of people who are voracious readers, but I think the percentage of the population that are voracious readers or who read for anything outside of a very narrow genre with very
Hmm.
defined rules, um,
Right.
you don't it shuts you off in general, whether you're even aware of it. It shuts you off a little bit to other experiences.
Hmm.
And I don't mind being a little uncomfortable sometimes when I read something, as long
Same.
as,
Yeah.
I don't want to read about pedophiles, but, um,
Right.
though, as you noted early on, it used to be such an accepted thing. I'm sorry. All of this hue and cry, I get it. I 100% get it. But where has this hue and cry been for the last 2,000 years when we never used to think anything about an adult male, having sex with an underage girl? I mean, it's only been in recent years that we've stopped charging minors with being prostitutes, right? In some
Right.
states, right?
Hmm.
And even then, there's all this pushback. No, no, they're prostitutes. It's just like if they're a minor, they can't legally consent to have sex. So tell me how
Right.
being a prostitute.
That has been one of the biggest problems in sex trafficking is to recognize these young women and sometimes young men as not having agency.
Right.
But maybe they think, especially in these redder states, that it's okay to do that because Jesus or something. I don't know.
Something.
Like they have this idea that kids can choose right or wrong when they're turned 12, the age of whatever their age of consent, and I'm just like, you people are bananas, you
Well,
know,
the same people that don't want 18-year-olds to vote now are still fine with 12-year-olds getting married. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have an aneurysm. I just can't. I can't.
completely.
Uh,
Yeah.
let me let
Yeah.
me let me change the tone here just a touch because you
Sure.
mentioned your copywriting. And you're well known as a copywriter, and so I'm just kind of curious. What are some of the obvious tells of a very amateur writer when you go to copyright something? Are there things that you see more than others when you're telling people, okay, here's what I found, are there themes you see over and over as a copywriter in specific that an amateur writer would really want to look at before they send it your way or to a developmental editor or anyone else?
I mean, so I should probably say that like my day job now has shifted considerably. And what the main thing I do right now is I am a UX designer. I'm a user experience designer, and I work in content design, which is less creative and much more I think of copywriters as hucksters and UX writers as helpers, and we help people use apps and use websites and use digital products, um, but the same principles apply to good writing, because I'm now a people leader, and so I'm hiring people, like not this moment, I've already hired two people, but when I'm hiring people, the same principles that I've always used to gauge someone's maturity as a writer ring true for even when I'm reading a manuscript, an unpublished manuscript, or even a published manuscript. I'm looking for attention to detail. I'm looking for sentence structure. I'm looking for conciseness. I'm looking for someone who is using the words, using the sound of the words. Like if you read it out loud, how does it sound? Right? I'm looking for someone who's has a keen eye for repetition, and who can eliminate that. Um, and someone who has a very strong understanding of logic in their writing, like what follows what, like how do all these pieces fit together.
Hmm.
And so and it's always the same. And even when I write these job descriptions, and I put them out there, I say, look, you must be a superb writer and editor. You must be able to look at what you've written and edit it, and do explorations, and don't be afraid to do, like, I mean, and when we're talking about short form, it's easy to like go through and say and try it like 10 different ways, right? I'm not talking about with a novel, although sometimes we do wind up doing that with a novel. Malheureusement. But it's just that eye, just having that critical eye. And I really treasure it. And so like both of the people I just hired have that. And I have someone else on my team. Oh my God, she blew me away. And her first writing test was like, holy crap, this woman she has such an attention to detail, but she doesn't drown in it.
Yeah. 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 One of the hardest things I have, because I have interns a lot and, younger people, one of the hardest things I get for getting them to understand is to write it in an active voice.
Hmm.
Right. Because I feel like we must be taught to write passively these days.
We are, yeah.
It's crazy because I'm constantly reminding people, don't write, in such a passive voice. It's much more boring reading if you write in an active voice. You can even make a mistake here and there, but if it's in an active voice, it's just so much more pleasing to a reader. And I think that does transfer over to a lot of our fiction writing. But definitely if you're doing nonfiction, especially if you're doing some kind of narrative nonfiction, they're going to
Oh my
absolutely
God.
want you to write in as active a voice as possible because you've got to make it
Hmm.
almost like a thriller. Just because
Hmm.
it's not fiction doesn't mean you can write it boring. No one wants to read boring,
Nobody
no
wants
matter what it
boring.
no matter
No,
what it is, right?
no.
Well, we
Yeah.
both know Jonathan Mayberry, he's a friend of both of
Yeah.
us, and
Yeah.
he's a friend of ours. Um, and I remember him telling me about, one of the things when he first started writing, somewhat as a freelance person, he was writing um, descriptions that go on the back of seed packages like burpees and all that
Hmm.
stuff. And he said he took it as an opportunity to write, in a somewhat active, more interesting voice. And it just got him all kinds of work just like that. And it paid really.
Yeah.
So I just laughed out
Yeah.
loud. I said, my God, Active Voice got you the burpees contracts. That's awesome.
That's
Whatever it
so
takes, man.
funny,
Whatever pays the bills.
right?
I have one more serious question, then we'll wrap this thing up. But I wanted to ask you because you recently were talking about this a little bit on Facebook, and so because I think this is the bane of every writer, anyone who puts anything out in the public sphere.
Hmm.
You were talking about getting a one-star review for the new book.
Hmm.
And I often ask writers how they handle reviews, bad reviews, poor reviews, whatever. And some writers have never had a bad one, but you know, in this day and age where we have all these different platforms, Goodreads and Amazon, and I can't even think of them all.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about getting a one-star review, your reaction to it, and maybe what it means for an author, especially if someone's doing as an independent or a small press author, to get even
Hmm.
that one-star review.
Well, when you get that one star review, especially early on, it's hard to recover from your star average. It's very hard. Um, and and I've noticed that like Goodreads is where people go to really dump on books. So the person who left that one star review, I mean, like basically said, yeah, this book just didn't do anything for me. That sounds like a 3 star review to
Right.
me. Not a 1 star review. Like a 1 star review would be this person can't spell, can't write a sentence, can't, like, I didn't finish it. I got 3 chapters in because it was so poorly written. Not a 1 star review, but that's encouraged on Goodreads. On Goodreads, the culture is because Goodreads is more about the reader community. It's not about writers at all. It's about the reader community. And so people go there and they just, because we have such a poisonous, toxic um world right now. It's just
Mhm.
everything is just so toxic. And so people go to Goodreads to just dump on writers. And I mean, I don't know, you probably haven't read Snowed, but like people will just like dump 1 stars on that book. That's one of the best books I've ever written. I know it's a fucking ass-kicking book, you know? So when I see a 1 star, I'm like, get the fuck out. I don't care what you say. Um,
Right.
but at this point, this book is like 9 years old. So I mean, like whatever, right? But a new book that's barely gotten off the ground, it gets a 1 star. I don't think people realize, I think they just think they're being honest, but I really don't think people know how to right size their reactions to what they're doing online. I mean, which is basically the story of the internet, you know?
Right.
It's just the story of the internet. So, I mean, so that 1 star, and I went onto NetGalley where they weighed it differently, and that person did put that 1 star on NetGallery. But the thing is that on NetGalley, because they weighed it differently, I have 7 reviews and I still have a 4 star average. So NetGalley doesn't let you tank somebody like that, which is nice because they are about books. They are about more about the authors. Um, so for me, it's like it's frustrating. It's really frustrating, but if I can just for a moment, like just sort of shift into neutral and look, I mean, I don't know, we're probably about the same age. I have been on the internet since 1990, and I'm telling you, it's always been this way.
Yeah.
People have always sucked on the internet, but social media has made it easier to suck worse, like a way worse, like to the power of a billion worse. And so this is where we get these really like frustrating situations where it's like, oh, come the fuck on. 1 star? Are you for real? Like it's not right sized. But that's what people feel entitled to do. When we give people didn't used to have the ability even to do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that was a different publishing world when people now that readers have such big voices in everything. And I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but the bad part is they don't know, like I said, they don't know how to right size their reactions. And they also don't give a shit what happens.
We are such a narcissistic culture. Like,
Oh, that's a perfect word, narcissistic.
we
Yeah.
are
That's why
so,
we have a narcissist in the presidency. Narcissism is big time right now.
oh my
Yep.
God. And social
Rampant.
media and, all media, but particularly social media,
Hmm.
has given people carte blanche to self-glorify at an alarming rate. I mean, I think about that sometimes, because look, here I am, I'm doing a show that's on the internet, and
Hmm.
I think, and I'm not going to sit here and rationalize my own stuff, other than to say that the things that I am the most interested in are things that are legitimately trying to present something of value to people. And it's not like I am very aware. I go into all this with the idea nobody came here to see me. Nobody came here to hear me. They came here to hear my guest. And that's why I try to put
Mm.
all the emphasis I can on everything with my guest and have it be conversational and fun. So when people go away from this, they have learn something about that person, but also about writing, about the industry, and
Hmm.
it is something of value, whether they ever know a thing about me or not. And that's how always want it to be. And if it ever became something other than that, I would stop doing it. That's also why I don't do advertising, and I don't try to get a sponsor. I don't want any influences on this. The only thing I want here is I sit down and have a conversation with people like you, and
Hmm.
people can either like it
Right.
or not. But whether they like it or not does not determine whether or not I keep doing it. What determines whether or not I keep doing it is whether I'm enjoying it and my guests are enjoying it, and we're all having a
A
positive
good situation.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That
Good
ever
experience.
doesn't happen, I will be done. And I think there's a lot of people that do the social media thing and the internet thing, and I don't know how much they enjoy the process. They enjoy the self-aggrandizement.
Hmm.
And once they start making big money, then it's just like every day is a stretch to get that much crazier and get the new eyeballs and all. I'm too
The
old for that
attention
shit.
economy is bananas. I just can't. I've got too much going on in my life. I'm a grown up
Yeah.
and I
Right.
just
Right.
I've got too much to do. I have a full-time job. I'm writing. We're actually in the process of moving. We're going to be like neighbors pretty soon. We're moving up to Sacto County.
Oh,
And yeah, yeah. So it's like we are, I just told you, and I haven't told even most of my family. So
awesome.
anyway,
Well, you got a week.
it
This will probably could take a
it's
week to
fine.
get.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna start telling people in a week. It's yeah. But yeah, it's I mean, I've got so much going on,
Hmm.
It's like I just and I'm married and I've got two ridiculous cats and you know the drill.
I
Like
do.
I don't even have any kids and I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't even imagine like these people who that's all they have time for every day, all day. It's just
Oh, man. I do so little of that's of interest. I mean, seriously, on a personal, I mean, I think my job's interesting and all of that stuff, but not to everybody. It's interesting to the people in my world and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I, I don't ever want to be in a point where I have to depend on other people's opinion of me to feel positive about myself, right?
Oh
That
no,
is the
I
other thing. You see
know.
so much damage done to, especially the young people from internet culture, and that's a whole other conversation. But I really
Absolutely. Yeah.
I see a lot of efforts in my world where people are, advocates are trying to craft policy and things that try to protect kids. And God, the pushback on it is especially from big tech is kind of crazy, and but also from others. And I don't, again, whole other conversation. So
Yeah.
I'll tie that in a little bow and set it aside. And I'll ask you my final question. And you've been on the show before, and regular listeners know I always like to make this somewhat of a fun question. And I play my options game where I give you three figures. They could be living or dead, and there's a little bit of a through line with them. And let's just say I had the power to put you together with one of these three people for dinner and drinks or whatever you want. And who would you choose and why? And so the options that I'm gonna give you are, and you'll probably figure out something of a through line here. Uh, Film director Wes Craven, the actresses Mila Jovovich or Jamie Lee Curtis. I will give you those three as your options. Who would you choose and why?
Oh, I think Jamie Lee Curtis, because I love her. I would just be fangirling through the whole dinner. But at the same time, I mean, she's a person who has seen it all.
Hmm.
And I would love her wisdom as an older woman. I mean, I'm an older woman, but she's an even older woman. Um, and that I really seek out that sort of thing. You know, I have a real hunger for it myself.
I
It's very important.
I love her, and has seen it all. She was born into it and is still all these years later. And I love that she got an Academy Award for the first time. I love that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was going to like that movie with everything, everywhere, all the time. Did I say it right?
All at once. Yeah,
All at
everything
once.
everywhere all at once. Yeah.
Yes, I did not think I was going to like that movie going into it. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I loved it.
Oh,
Absolutely loved it. Thought it
yeah.
was great. She was
Yeah,
great.
it's
There's
so
so many
so
great
delightful.
performances in that movie across the board. What a great, there for once was something unique, different, and interesting out of Hollywood. So yeah,
Yeah.
great one. And I will tell you a little bit of through line, of course, Wes Craven, horror. Jamie Lee Curtis, a lot of horror in her early career, and
Mhm.
not really horror, but Mila Jovovich has done some of that. But she played Joan of Arc in one of her roles.
She
So,
did.
so there was a
Yeah,
little
she
little through
did.
line there about
She's an interesting person too. I mean, but I'm really drawn to the crone image right now. Just really like figuring all. I just had a finished an audiobook with oh God, now I'm forgetting her name. The woman who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves, and she wrote one about the crone,
hmm.
and it was outstanding. Like I just starting to understand like what is this time period that I've entered and what does it mean and what good can I do with that knowledge and power? And it's quite a lot. It's really good.
Well, I wish you luck on that one because that's our society is also not very kind to women of a certain age, and
No, they're not. But you know what? Women of a certain age don't give a fuck.
that's yes. And no power to you, man. I'm all about it. That's great. Maria Alexander, thank you for coming on the show today. And if you haven't seen your copy of Brimstone and Blades, go check it out. Yep, if you're watching on YouTube, she's holding it up again. Check it out. Should be available just about anywhere. Go ahead and grab a copy because I know Maria's a great writer. Great conversation as always. Sorry, I haven't been able to make any conferences of late. My work schedules have been not conducive with
It's
some of the other
okay.
conferences, but it'll happen again sometime here soon. So hopefully we'll get to sit at the bar again sometime soon and have a drink and commiserate more about this crazy world. So I will leave you folks
Indeed.
with the last things here. As always, if you haven't hit subscribe, please do so, or tell a friend. I really do think if you have any friends who are thinking about getting into writing, if they think they want to do it, whether it's professionally or for whatever reason, I like to think this is a good show to learn something about this game from people who do it on the regular, and that's who you really want to listen to. I always used to joke if I really wanted to have success as a writer, I would write a book about writing, which I've never done because I guess I do this. Anyway, long story short, yeah, tell a friend. That'd be great. Otherwise, come back and join us again sometime here in the near future on the open mic, Writers in Their Own Words. Maria Alexander, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And the last thing I
Thank
will
you.
say, I say it all the time, and I always mean it. Tomorrow is not promised to any of us, so whatever you do, make today count. And with that, until next time, this has been Rich Eisen, and this has been the Open Mic. See you next time.